I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to the conversation with Al McFarlane. Today is Monday, one day away from voting day, an important day. Voting's on our mind. It's on the mind of the world, I believe, and we'll talk about that over the course of this program. But let me begin by acknowledging my colleagues and friends, my writing partner, Brenda Lyle-Gray, who joins me every day from the mountains of Colorado. Brenda, how you doing?
I'm fine. It's mountains of Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Not Colorado. I'm thinking, yeah, okay, great. Well, you could move. You could move. Okay.
Oh, isn't that the truth?
Listen, also, I want to say hi to my friend Diana Hawkins. Diana, you're there?
Yes, I'm here. I'm here. How is everybody? Hi, Brenda, Mr. L.
Hi, Diana.
Phillipps is here. And Dee, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm well. And I've got some other people here that'll be joining as we go along. But I want to begin by sort of continuing the conversation we had last week, Brenda. We were talking in the past several weeks with educators, people responsible for moving the needle forward in diversity and inclusion. And sort of in that same spirit, that same vein, I'm pleased to welcome a leader at the University of Minnesota in this important work, Mercedes Ramírez Fernández. I think I'm saying your name correctly. Good afternoon and welcome to the conversation. How are you?
Oh, good afternoon. You said the name perfectly well. I am delighted to be here. Thank you very much.
Mucho gusto en conocerle. Bienvenido. Y tanto me gusta
Very close, Diana.
Usted y hablar con usted
Going out.
sobre cosa tan importante, su obra, nuestros, ¿cómo se dice? Deseos de mejorar el mundo. ¿Está bien?
I think it's so cool.
Bueno. Listen, you're doing marvelous work in diversity and inclusion at the University of Minnesota. It's important what you do. I want to thank you for that. Dr. Ramírez Fernández has more than 20 years of experience in higher education administration. She's recognized for her leadership on the issue of diversity and campus climate. She's done that at several leading universities, and she specializes in higher education curriculum, institutional models that support student success, and strategic enrollment management and assessment. She currently serves as the Richard Feldman Vice President for Equity and Inclusion and Chief Diversity Officer at University of Rochester. Do I have that right? Yeah.
Actually, that was my previous job. I'm now here at the University of Minnesota.
There we go. Well, okay. But the information is prior. Okay, great. Prior to Rochester, I'm reading your notes here. You were at Virginia Tech, got a doctorate in higher education management from the University of Pennsylvania, MA in counseling and human development from University of Iowa, and a BA in psychology with a concentration in Spanish literature from the University of Puerto Rico, Boricua. Well, listen, I'll stop reading that and focus on inviting you and your voice to share both the vision and the opportunity, the challenges that we face, and what you have provided as a leader to support diversity, equity, inclusion at University of Minnesota. Welcome.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Very warm welcome. And also in Spanish, and with all of the syllables of my name. So thank you very, very, very much. I don't get that all the time. Well, it is an honor, for me, and a privilege, to be part of this conversation. I am relatively new to the cities here in Minnesota. I've been here for 8 weeks, so I started in my role 8 weeks ago. I was particularly interested in this role because it is a systems role. So it's not only the University of Minnesota at the Twin Cities, but also the other campuses in Rochester and Duluth and Crookston and Morris. So that was particularly interesting and exciting, to me to be able to work across, so many different partners, towards equity, racial and social justice. So the first 8 weeks, have been very fast, as I would say, just fast and furious, but also incredibly affirming in the work. We're hoping to, continue the work that many people, have been doing here in Minneapolis and St. Paul and across the greater Minnesota, and just making sure that we realize that this work is continuous and that it requires, resources, it requires, steadfast commitment, so that our students that come, from communities that have been, marginalized, from greater or normative society, are able to fulfill their aspirations and their intellectual goals and dreams.
What's I mentioned your training. Talk about your background, what you bring in preparation, highlights of your background, if you would, and in the context lead to how you envision having impact here in Minnesota.
Well, I have had, I've been doing this work since I was a very small person. Back in Puerto Rico, my family was involved in community support and development. My dad, organized political campaigns. So I have been, since I was very young, had this notion of the greater good and supporting the communities and those who need it the most ingrained into my consciousness since I was like 3 years old. So, there's this way of knowing that we bring from our communities that then has been mixed through theoretical work that I have done at universities. But for me, the area, the aspects that has provided me with incredible wisdom has been working with the communities. I'm talking about the communities outside the institutions of higher education that oftentimes, we forget when we're working at institutions of higher education. So I have had the opportunity to work on strategic planning at previous institutions. And then for me, is utilizing that knowledge and adapting it, to our unique culture or cultures, I would say, of the University of Minnesota. So it's developing goals, developing action plans, and that those action plans need to be recognized by those that are in positions of leadership, and having ways to measure what we're doing, and being able to see the progress that our work is able to hopefully actualize. So that level of nitty-gritty details, but at the same time providing the care for those that are doing the work that is also very important, particularly after the pandemics that we have all experienced.
So one of the challenges, I think, for education in general has been and is your assignment, and that's inclusivity, and getting our communities on the one hand to embrace the value and to believe that what is being offered is real and worthwhile on the one hand, but also to know and work hard towards achieving and attaining futures that education will enable. Where is the line? Where is the creative space between, maybe someone could say our skepticism about the expression of culture that is tied up in American or Western or European education, and the value of learning that we know from within our own cultural communities, right? Which sometimes is in conflict with what is professed and presented by the power of the establishment of academia right now. So I'm kind of being circumspect, but let me be very direct. Let me be really clear. So what happens when the aspirations of people of color come in conflict with the agenda or the perceived agenda of the power that seeks to sustain itself through all institutions, including higher education. Right now, the value and purpose and mission of education is to acculturate, train, prepare people to serve both the institution and to create the sense that serving the institution is, in fact, serving yourself and your culture. But in reality, I believe that sometimes serving the institution means intentionally disserving or abandoning or devaluing your culture. Does that make sense as a question?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I appreciate that question so much. We do know that historically, institutions, of education, in this case, particularly higher education, were created to maintain a certain level of knowledge that was recognized as the knowledge. So what we have been able, to track over the decades is the birth in higher education of disciplines that honor the various different ways of knowing from Black people, from Indigenous people, from people of color, from queer people, and that is just what is disrupting, the academy, if you will. That we need that disruption. One of the things that keeps me alive and extremely inspired is that our students think differently. And our students, this generation of students, which I believe are like the hope for the world, are thinking in different ways. They're pushing back, they're resisting, they are acknowledging their cultural understandings and the wisdom that they have been receiving from their families and those communities. So we continue to see that elevation of their unique ways of knowing. And in my opinion, this is what's going to save higher education. It's this infusion of different ideas that come from us, what I see here in this group, and from our ancestors, that's why we're here, right? We're here because, there were people before us that nurture us and make us believe that we have value when other aspects of society did not think that we did, So I see that in our faculty. I was just reading a newsletter from one of our faculty members at the university that just really touched upon that, and all of the research and evidence that is associated with exactly your words. So it's from our faculty, it's from our staff and leaders, it's from our students, our alums that are coming back into the university to make sure that, we're paying attention to all of these areas and all of this matter. And in the meantime, while students are making more sense of, their ways of knowing and incorporating that into the fabric of higher education, particularly at the University of Minnesota, it's just how do we take care of them? How do we keep them whole in that process?
Fantastic. So to build on the same train of thought, as more of our people find our way into the higher education system, what do you predict will be the outcomes? What are the desired outcomes in the arena of transformation? Not only that reflects our people being our authentic selves, but arriving in community and in the world differently in ways that respect the ancestors, right? That reflect that we are presently being guided by the intention of the ancestors, and that we are also being guided by the yet unborn, those that are in the future, and in a sense making the work we do today critically important, but us aware of the work. What's the outcome of that as you see it? Get the answer.
Yeah. Well, for me, I see this as the continuous progress towards liberation, liberating our minds, liberating our spirits, liberating our hearts. And that is for us, people of color, but also it will be for everyone. It will be for everyone that is, part of our society, being able just to hold in your mind and in your heart and in your spirit all these disparate, ways of knowing that, come together perfectly. So that is, I see spaces when that is happening, and it's just like those aha moments that you can see in real time when people are just finally find themselves in that space. So instead of like just freaking out and saying, oh my gosh, I'm just going to resist this, it's just like really just walking into it. It's just this walking in, almost like this walking into faith, so then walking into this space of being in this disruptive space. So I think that's what I am personally hoping for higher education, for education in general, for the education of our children and their children.
Listen, I think we said a whole lot in a short period of time. I'm going to call this the end of our conversation right now, but the beginning of a new relationship. I want to make sure that we stay in touch in any way this program or my newspaper can support your voice, your vision, your work, your students, and your institution. We are pleased to be in community with you and to be a support. Let me ask Dee or Diana or Brenda, any questions or comments or feedback on this conversation? I tell you, Dr. Fernández, this conversation is special and meaningful to me and for me, so I thank you so much.
I have a question, Al.
Go ahead, Diana.
Dr. Mercedes. Since our youth are behind since the pandemic, how do you see them getting caught up? What is being done? Because we have a lot of youth. I mean, they're really behind. What is being done about that?
Yeah. This was a conversation that we were having at my previous institution, and through the communities, we had a committee that our office started. It was the Community Engagement for Racial Justice, and it was a group of leaders from the community and from nonprofit organizations, people that were also, serving in government and councils, and with partners from the university, and how can we we in the space of higher education can extend, support infrastructure to schools and to childcare organizations. So there were specific plans that we were working that came from the wisdom of the community. That's another thing, right? Because sometimes people come in and tell you, they're going to tell you how things need to happen, but our communities always know what's best. We know the answers. We just need the resources. So at the University of Minnesota here in particularly in the Twin Cities, the College of Education and Human Development works with a number of schools in the area. And I know that our dean is that's one of the things that he has in his mind. So those close relationships, with our educators, K through 12, and with our communities and organizations.
I have a quick. I'm former educator, 4 decades. And I am really, really concerned. How do you shake the resources that are available in your state in order for you to do your work? How loud do the voices have to be? How many seats do you need at the table to say that we've got in your state, 11% in math or 13% or 8%? I mean, test scores don't give the true picture, but it's going to be a struggle to get these kids caught up. And it seems like, not just in your state, right here in New Mexico as well, no one's taking this serious. Where are the leaders going to come? If we don't back up and start having freedom schools and hiring tutors and doing research and having tables for grants, it's all kinds of money out there. We don't have to wait on the GOP to say, I'm not going to help you with your children while they're in their silos going to private schools and tutors. But these kids have got to be saved. We have to love them and nurture them and let them see that there is a future. Right now, they don't see that. And that's scary to me.
Dr. Fernández, you can respond if you would.
Okay, sure. Thank you. So I think all of the things that you mentioned, Brenda, are important things to consider. It's not only one approach; it's all of them. So tutors, just how can we leverage research so institutions of higher education are able to just do all of that. But also our students, the students that are here and across all states, are also very interested in reaching out to communities that need that level of support. So it's just that organization of having our own students, being in that capacity of serving. So, and I know that is happening in some areas. I'm like fairly new here, so I just can't quite.
Sure. 8 weeks, yeah, I would think.
I'll have to say that at other places where I had been, the cultural centers, the Black Cultural Center, the Latinx Cultural Center, the Native American Cultural Centers, those students that are already in college and doing extremely well, we're just giving countless hours tutoring in middle schools or elementary schools. And it was also extremely important for the little ones, to see kind of like yourself in, grown fashion, right? In grown form, I can do that as well. So that level of, that level of service that needs to be encouraged as fundamental for our education and for our future as engaged citizens. That doesn't end. That's continues in different fashions. But I do truly appreciate your question, Brenda, and yours, Diana, because that is that and the crisis of childcare in our country, just really has placed an incredible pressure in the knowledge of our children. And what are we doing then in terms of creating bridge courses, to make sure that our students have it's not only passing your grades, right? You said that you were for decades in as an educator, so
I was an administrator and a classroom teacher on college level too, and it wasn't like this. Yeah. It wasn't like this when Al and I went to kindergarten all the way through. We had some of the best teachers you could imagine, but we didn't have a lot of resources. We had corrupt school boards. We had it all, but we had parents out there fighting for us.
The parents.
Yeah, and they've got to step up. They've got to put their foot in this, and they've got to step up. So anyway, thank you so much, and I wish you the best of luck. I am very emotional about this because those test scores, and I just finished a couple articles on a young man who is a doctoral student at UC Berkeley. And I told my boss, I said, look, this isn't going to be a one page. This isn't going to be one article. This young man was just wonderful.
Brenda, Dr. Fernández has to go. Dr. Fernández, thank you so much. And we'll be in touch. We'll do this again.
Thank you so very much. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. I see I've got other guests here and ready to go. Brett Buckner looks like he's driving, but I see Jeff Hayden is also here. And Kyle Samejima is also here. Let me bring everybody in. I want to talk to Jeff and Brett first. I think that Attorney General Ellison might be joining us. If he does, we'll just drop him in. And is it Kyle or Kylie? What's the right pronunciation?
Kyle.
It is Kyle and Samejima.
Kyle Samejima. Kyle,
thank you.
And I are going to talk about energy, something we've talked about before. I want to keep that conversation going because there's opportunity, a lot of it, I think, that we should all be aware of, and she's doing great work. But I also want to make sure that I capture the opportunity to talk to Jeff Hayden and Brett Buckner, because top of mind for everybody right now is voting tomorrow, and how it's going to come out. Brett, hello. How you doing, my friend? Did you pull over in park, or are you still driving?
Still, I got one more block to make it.
Okay.
It's in the service of the people.
Well, don't drive and talk to me on the phone. So pull over. Jeff, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well, Al. How are you?
I'm great. Former Senator Jeff Hayden. You've got light behind you. We need light in front of you. I don't know if you're on a mobile phone.
Yeah, I gotta try to let me try to see if I can move around just a little bit. I'm in a different space here. Hold on one second.
Okay, because you're kind of outlined there. Yeah. And Brett, you pulled over now?
Oh yeah, no, we were just in the middle of making the turn to park. So good to see everybody.
Well, let me just drop it on you. Where are we now with the elections? What's the energy like, and what are you trying to make happen?
Well, it's tight. Without question, we say it every time that this is the most consequential election that you could possibly have. This is no different with Minnesota. I know Jeff, my guy, is going to talk a little bit about this as well, but all 201 seats are up in the legislature, the state house, the state constitutional offices, and many things such as Hennepin County Sheriff and Attorney, which we could create history there. School board. A lot is going on across our metro and across our state, and we need people to come out and say, this is what we need. I mean, I think the conversation that took place before us really tells the story. People have to stand up, and this is one of the major ways you can make it happen, by saying this is what you need in order for our kids to succeed and to ensure that we're going to have a prosperous future for all of us. But you know, we're going to get some energy out there. I know people are hitting the pavements really hard over the next couple hours, and we're just going to fight like all heck to make sure that our voices are heard at the highest levels.
Jeff Hayden, what are you excited about, and what are you fearful of at the moment as you as we wind down towards the 0 hour?
Well, I'm always excited during election time, and once again, thank you for having me on your show, Al, and you're a wonderful guest. So I'm always excited when people get to go out there and participate in this experiment that we call democracy and have their voice to be heard. And so shows like this are really good in order to talk about it. But, you know, as we say in the community, there's enough talking about it, and sometimes you got to be about it. And so this is the be about it side of the talk about it that we always do. So this is the culmination of all of those ads that you see on TV, and all of the work and all of the doors that have been knocked and all of the mail that has been coming to you, your opportunity to then participate in democracy and to ensure that your voice is heard. So I'm excited about that. But I will say that I am nervous about the future. And I think that we're all seeing it and see what happens. I think that it's been really clear that if you don't vote, or if you don't get your friends to vote and you don't win, then a lot of the things that are in our interest will go away. And I think we just saw that this year. We've been seeing in a steady stream of it, but this year, I'll just use one issue that's on everybody's mind, and this issue about women's reproductive rights and their health care. Other people would just talk about it as the abortion issue, which certainly that's what it is. But what it really is, Al, is this is about rights that have been afforded through public policy, through decisions that said that if you're a person, but in this case, a woman, you have the ability to make the choice to do what you need to do for your body. You get to make those decisions. You get to go sit down with your physician or healthcare professional and others and make a decision that says that this is right for me, and that politicians, which I used to be one, or lawmakers or whoever, this isn't their place in which to do that. And so that was, as we know, called Roe versus Wade, which was struck down by the Supreme Court, and in particular by justices who had testified to say that this was settled law and this was something that they weren't interested in. But as soon as as soon as the right slate of people got there, it was one of the first things that they did was to strike this down. And so we have something like that here. It's called Gomez versus the state of Minnesota, and Attorney General Ellison can talk to you about it at great length. He's a wonderful attorney. But we have some protections here, and slowly but surely, if you vote the wrong people in, those things could erode. But here's the last thing I'll say about that, and I've said this in churches all throughout throughout the Twin Cities as I've been talking to people. We start out here, and maybe this is not an issue that you care about, or you think it's pertained to you, or maybe you don't even agree with abortion. But I'll tell you what, and I said this in mostly African American churches, if you let this go and you let this slide, then what's the next thing that's going to go? And ultimately, you can end up picking cotton for free, right, at the betterment of somebody else. And we know what I mean when I say that. That's not coded language. This isn't dog whistle language. It means that our ability to be free, right, and not to be treated as cattle, our ability to vote, our ability to marry and love who we love, et cetera, were all things that were gained through public policy initiatives. And this election, this is a mandate on that. This is a referendum that, though Brett did say that we're always saying this is the election of a lifetime, but I will tell you that those things are on the ballot, not just abortion or not just Roe, not just women's reproductive rights, but all of the human and civil rights that we've gained over the last 400 years, 300, couple hundred years in this country could start to slowly, or not even slowly, could quickly erode.
Well, I'm looking at a document written by our colleague Brett Buckner here. It's a wonderful essay entitled Democracy or Chaos. I want to read one paragraph, and you can see how you sound, Brett. You sound really good to me. I'm reading your words. You say the 2022 midterm election is much more important than 2024. Critical individuals, such as Secretary of State, Attorney Generals, and local election officials are selected through the proper administration of our laws and rules, ensuring all Americans can participate in this wonderful experiment called America. They are tasked with protecting the republic and our democracy, but this can only happen if you participate. This is a call to action. You've been doing this document, Democracy or Chaos, is a voter's guide put out by Minnesota Voice and Black Votes Matter MN. Great job, a great directory, still available. Check it out if you haven't decided. This is a way to learn about what's on the table, who's up for election in different parts of the state. So Brett, how do you see the tea leaves flowing right now? The critical race everybody's thinking about in particular is Keith Ellison's. And Jeff, you can weigh in here as well. Hopefully Keith will be on.
Funny enough, I mean, every once in a while, Jeff and I run into each other. We compare a little note here and there, and, we keep picking each other's brain. I'm picking more his brain than mine. He's picking mine, but it's a tough one. This is about the community saying, this is the candidate. This is the man that actually stood up on behalf of us when Derek Chauvin put the knee on the neck of George Floyd.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody keeps thinking that was the governor that made the call. That was Keith Ellison who made that team and put the team together to make sure that all of our rights, not just, yes, Black, but all Minnesotans would not have to endure that murder again. And I think that's literally what is on the ballot right now, that you do have one side that is comfortable with those type of actions continuing on, and then us who believe that justice is for all and that it should be defended even when it's done with someone with a badge. So just that stark reality.
Jeff, almost
just that stark. Yeah, go ahead.
I was thinking there's almost $1 million of what they call dark money showing up in that campaign to discredit Keith Ellison and Democrats in general. Will there be a price to pay for the disinformation and the what I think is almost abusive fear-mongering that Republicans are unleashing right now? What do you think, Jeff Hayden?
Yeah, I mean, this issue about outside money coming in is something that, we've all been worried about for a while. And frankly, the ads that I see Republicans run are pretty tough. Though I will say, to be fair, though I am a former Democratic leader, Democrats use that money to put out messages as well about Republicans. I would say, though, in a very biased way, I think that the ads the Democrats put out are a little more factual than the ones that the Republicans put out. But that's another debate for another time if I had a Republican on the other side of this conversation. So I want to make sure that I'm being fair and objective to that. But what I will say is that, Al, you hit on something, that there's a record amount of outside money. So not only do candidates raise money and put out their message, but the outside money is helping to frame this idea. Someone said to me, maybe my wife or someone, who said, why do they keep on doing negative ads? I'm so tired every time I turn on the TV this time of year. It's just disgusting. And I hear this a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let me tell you why they do it. Because it works. If it didn't work, they wouldn't do it. And so I don't know what that says about us as a society and some of the work that we need to do, or the lack of, I know you have educators on the line, the lack of critical thinking skills for us to be able to figure this out. But just that steady barrage of this is who, in this case, this is who Keith is. I think Brett eloquently articulated that Attorney General Ellison was the person who took over this Derek Chauvin case, who put together the right team, the dream team, if I may say so, and was able to, at the right tenor, take and give and put up a fair trial that convicted Derek Chauvin. And at the same time, somehow he's being demonized as someone who's anti-law enforcement. Well, he's pro-law enforcement. He's pro-good law enforcement. He's pro making sure that the system works as it should, that if you have law enforcement officers that are abusing their status as peace officers, that he's holding them accountable. And the ultimate of holding them accountable was to make sure that Derek Chauvin and the other officers who showed up to 38th Street in Chicago, which we now call George Floyd Square in this district that I used to represent, that he held those accountable. That sent a powerful message throughout our society and internationally. I just had a group of international fellows that I took to George Floyd Square from all over the world, who came here. That's part of my firm's work that they do. And the first thing that they wanted to go was to George Floyd Square and understand what happened. And then we had a long discussion at the Sabathani Community Center about what happens. This affected everybody. This affected folks from Romania and Portugal, right? All over the world. So Keith led the process to make sure that says, listen, if this happens in our country, if this happens in our state, but if this happens somewhere in the world, there is going to be somebody who is courageous, like Keith Ellison, to do it. So the idea that somehow Keith isn't doing his job really speaks to the work that we have to do in our community to ensure that this issue of democracy, but this idea of checks and balances, and to ensure that we have the right law enforcement officers. The other thing I will say, just really quickly, is that Keith Ellison has led this notion with other attorney generals on the opioid issue that we all have been touching. He has went out with these other attorney generals across the country and sued these multinational corporations who were killing our community, Black, white, and indigenous. It didn't make a difference. Keith is fought against predatory housing lenders, right? That's the work that he's done. I know he's going to come on and tell you more, but that's the work that Keith has continued to do. He is right now in an open fight against gun retailers who are selling guns, and those guns are ended up in our community, killing our people. That's the kind of attorney general that you want. With all due respect to Mr. Schultz, who I don't know, and frankly, nobody else knows. And you wouldn't have known him if the dark money wouldn't have came in and put you in front of him. He hasn't stepped foot in the courtroom. He doesn't understand this issue. And clearly, if for some reason he prevailed, which I don't think he is, he wouldn't be in charge. Somebody else would. I guarantee you that Keith Ellison, like him or not, is in charge of this attorney general's office. I know he's going to come on, but
he's here now. Actually, he's here now. Keith, good afternoon, brother. How you doing?
Everybody.
So you got a nail biter, brother. I mean,
yeah, I do.
The whole world's looking at you right now.
Yeah, but I want to say thanks to everybody. I mean, I heard Jeff, thanks for your kind words, brother. We're in this thing together, as you always know. But, we just got to get people out to the polls. If we turn out the folks, we'll be fine. We just got to get people to the polls. And the good news is that you can vote today and you can vote tomorrow, but you can't vote Wednesday. You got to do it. You got to do it. And so we are asking people to go take shifts, to get involved, to, If you can't walk, then do phoning. If you can't phone, then do texting. But help get people out to the polls and participate. That's the key thing now.
Does your vote outstate versus the urban core? I mean, what's the battleground for you?
Well, I mean, it depends on where you're talking about. So, for example, within the Twin Cities, pretty much if I turn the vote out, I just got to turn the vote out. And the real challenge is what they call them the low propensity voters.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the people who are working 2 or 3 shifts and don't necessarily make every election unless they're aware that it is one they got to make. Mm-hmm. Those folks, we got to get them out. We've got to get those folks who work 2nd, 3rd shift. And we want to help to see if we can help them get a ride or whatever they need. We're trying to get them to the polls. And then in some of the western suburban areas, those might be a little bit more persuasion, where we just got to make a strong case to people. But look, in North and South Minneapolis, you don't really have to twist the arms to get people to vote for me. They've been doing it for years. But, in some parts of the state, you've got to make the case, about the work we've been doing to help people afford their lives. That's just basic economic stuff from, dealing with opioids and fentanyl to wage theft. We started a wage theft unit and returned hundreds of thousands of dollars back to workers who have their wages stolen. In fact, we're working with gig workers now at Shipped, which is like a gig shopper. They're owned by Target, and those folks are not being treated fairly, and so we're standing up by them. My opponent is his thing is he's not for the ordinary people by a far sight. He is a guy whose sympathies lie with ExxonMobil, with the big, the powerful, the mighty, the people who have a law department and can roll right over you, even if you've been treated unfairly. You're not even going to get a real person to answer the call. But when we call on your behalf, then they have to listen. Mm-hmm. So we're the people. That's why I said we're the people's lawyer, right? We're on the side of the folks who need an advocate, right? In fact, I had a really nice video that a lady put out because she was a victim of a fake fraudulent student loan, and somebody took out loans in her name and it was ruining her credit. She called us, we got involved, we got her money back from thousands of dollars, and that just came through like this morning. I just saw her video about an hour ago. But then like last week, I met a lady who we got her back $7,000 because she was a victim of wage theft. We've increased these groups, but it's really the Attorney General's office is the economic balancer. So we've had to take Comcast to court, but they were sticking fees on people's bills that weren't supposed to be there. So we had to do that, and if we don't exist to do that, then people just get taken advantage of. And I just tell folks, poverty isn't some accidental thing that happens to you. What happens to you is that the powerful are able to extract money up out of your pockets. I mean, everybody knows it's expensive to be poor, right? From check cashers to payday lenders to unfair landlords to companies that don't pay you the wages that you worked for. I mean, if you got treated fairly, you might be wealthy, but because you're not and you don't have anybody on your side, you just spiral down. And we imagine an economy where everybody can aspire to prosperity, but that means that everybody has to play by the rules and be fair to particularly the hardworking people of our state.
How long do you campaign, Keith? Does campaign go into tomorrow night at 7, or when does the campaign end for you?
The campaign ends for me at about I'd say about 8:30, and the reason why is because polls close at 8 p.m. tomorrow night. Mm-hmm. But if you're in line, you can still vote.
Okay.
And those folks might need someone to help them, stay in line, and don't go home. We're trying to get people to vote early today because that will reduce the lines tomorrow.
Okay. but can people still work with their friends or neighbors or family members to get them to the polls on tomorrow? How much can people do tomorrow?
Well, what we're hoping people will do tomorrow is to call and get a shift today and go out and knock doors.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as you vote, it shows up in the van that you voted, and so people will stop calling you and stop knocking on your door.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like an advantage for you, right? And so we need people to take shifts. You take shifts to call and knock and do text banking. And if you right outside this door here is a room full of people, just full of people. I'm in Edina right now, and they're campaigning. But like, let's just say you don't want to join the big campaign. Just make sure you grab your phone, this thing right here, grab your phone and text everyone you know and make sure they vote.
There we go. Everybody
that is something you can do, or knock your floor in your building, or knock your block.
Okay.
And call all your friends in your bowling team or your quilting team or your book club. But in these midterm elections, people often, the people sometimes they don't understand that there's an important election. So this is when people, quite frankly, this is when Republicans make up ground, because, a lot of times people don't know, what's going on. But this election is very important. Let me tell you, we have seen January 6th, where they're literally attacking democracy.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen the Dobbs decision, literally attacking a woman's right to make her own choices. I can tell you without a doubt that the reason that they're pouring so much money in my election is because they're mad that I was involved in the prosecution of Derek Chauvin.
Yep.
That is why.
That's it.
That is why. They can't be supporting my opponent because he's a great prosecutor, because he's never set foot in court. He's never argued a motion in court. So it's not like, oh, we're going with the good. If they're going with the prosecutor, they should go with me, but they're not.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going after me because I'm a bad prosecutor. They're going after me because I'm a good prosecutor and I convicted a friend of theirs. And I'm just telling you the truth. Some people are like, well, you sure? They said as much.
Mm-hmm. Keith, let me have you come back tomorrow if you're available. We'll be on again at 1. And
we'll have a great conversation. And,
yeah.
Al, you got some great communicators on the line, so I'm sure we're in good hands and you guys will be getting the word out. But thank you, everyone. And thank you for loving our country, loving our state, loving democracy, and being willing to organize people for it. So have a good one. Thanks a lot.
See you. And Jeff and Brett, thank you guys very much too. Let me bring for the last few minutes of the program my friend Kyle Samejima. And Kyle, thank you for patience and for being here. I see you smiling, so I'm thinking the conversation was exciting and good for you as it was for me. I'm so glad to see the Attorney General and these advocates in community talk about the importance of all of us stepping up and doing our duty. But you're doing the same thing in the arena of energy, in the arena of conservation. Talk about an event you have coming up in the next few days.
Well, I just want to thank all the other guests and say how amazing it is that all these issues are intertwined.
Mm-hmm.
And that community wisdom and taking action and standing up is tied up in all of our liberation. Minneapolis Climate Action is partnering and collaborating with a cohort of North Minneapolis residents and to really design outreach and engagement from the community to an issue rather than someone else, an organization, another entity coming into the community. We are really trying to flip that script and engage around energy justice, environmental justice, climate change, the disparate impacts. And so we are hosting an event at Liberty's Northside Healing Space, Saturday, November 12th from 2 to 4. You can register if you go to mplsclimate.org. It's free registration. We'll have beautiful food, gift card for everyone who shows up. And again, this is really a chance for community dialogue, learning together, and really getting insights from the community about how to engage on the extremely important issues of addressing climate change and environmental racism and energy justice.
So I'm going to put you on the spot here because, again, how does the political conversation today impact the work that you're doing? I think I'm expecting you to say it's critical that people show up and show out because saving our planet and our environment require that. But what do you think?
I 100% disagree. And there's a particular aspect of kind of climate change. It can feel far away. It can feel like something that's affecting others. That is 100% not true. It's already affecting people in the Twin Cities. It's already affecting communities in a disparate way. And that it's depressing to hear those things. Mm-hmm. And yet acting together in collaboration and with that hope and healing embedded in all of that and that deep connection we're all yearning for is absolutely key. And that when we come together with one voice, when we come together with our wisdom and our passion and our love from our ancestors and for ourselves in the future, that is where we will see things change.
Talk about more broadly the work of the Climate Action Center.
So Minneapolis Climate Action is a nonprofit that, again, it's focused on climate action in Minneapolis, but it goes beyond action. We use community solar gardens like the one on North High School, really as a container and a tool for illustrating environmental justice. Yes, we need to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, but we need that deep systems change along with it. So and actually I do have a photo of the actual community solar garden. Oh, that's our amazing cohort, all North Minneapolis residents who will be leading this event on Saturday. It has been such a thrill to work with these community members. We have learned from each other. But again, we're really looking for systems change, including, again, those are students from North High, looking at the 900 panels on the roof of North High School that truly it's a model of equity and accessibility so that all the benefits from our renewable energy transition don't end up back in the hands of Xcel and their shareholders and other rich energy companies who are responsible for a lot of the peril that our planet is in.
Great. So this is awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. What's going to happen on the 11th?
So on the 11th, we will start out with sharing some information, knowing that there's community wisdom that everybody brings to this, but sometimes there are people like Keith Ellison knows a little bit more, a lot more about law and prosecution and courts than I do, but he also understands the role of community wisdom in that system. That is what we are going to talk about climate change a little bit, talk about climate justice. We will talk about the role of community solar, but really it is also to have a dialogue with community about how do they want to talk about these issues? How do community members want to frame these issues? How can we together create impactful community outreach and connection on these issues?
Let's do something real simple. Like, a lot of times language is a barrier.
Absolutely.
Words, vocabulary. I noticed the flyer that we had up talked about how to reduce your carbon footprint. Well, yet, unless you've been involved in the study or the reading, a carbon footprint might not make sense to you. So let's take a minute. What's a carbon footprint? And how does an ordinary average person conceptualize his or her carbon footprint?
Right. So let's start with carbon, and that is the carbon dioxide that's going into the atmosphere that is creating this blanket around the earth and heating it up too much. Climate is not weather. That's important to say. And footprint is the choices that we make that worse or better, whether it's about carbon or pollution or, waste. The other super critical piece of that carbon footprint is systems and corporations as well. It isn't just up to individuals, it's about these deeper systems. I totally agree about the language. I mean, I had someone illustrate to me, he said, do you watch football? I said, sometimes. He went to describe a play and used 8 terms that I had never heard. I had no idea what he was saying. So that is definitely, I thank you for pointing that out. That is something that we're always trying to get better at. And when I say we, I mean people that work in this field, that volunteer in this field. So yeah, carbon footprint is one aspect of this multi-layered issue.
And what are the other questions on that flyer? I'll bring that flyer back in. Let's see, but yeah, so one was how do you reduce your carbon footprint? And another topic is the solar gardens and how individuals can, I can't read that, can switch to a cleaner source of energy and save money. Take a minute, talk about that before we leave here in the next 4 or 5 minutes. And then you have questions about environmental and energy justice, what that means. And,
Sure.
How do you use your power? So go ahead and walk us through those in the elevator speech style.
Yes. So community solar gardens are, if you saw the panels on North High School, there are 900 panels up there. When it's connected, which is an issue with Excel, we could do a whole other hour on that. That energy goes into the grid, and community members can own a portion of that energy and get a credit on their electric bill, whether they rent or own, regardless of income, credit score, and they can participate with no money up front. So this is a way to support renewable energy, reducing a carbon footprint, and really, again, participating in a system that is accessible to everyone. And so that's the energy justice piece. This isn't just for people who own a home, can afford $10,000 for solar panels. We deliberately created this model to bring the benefits down to the community members, local nonprofits. We partner with renewable energy partners, Jamez Staples Company, Solar Development Company. We partner with local solar installers, hopefully being trained at the new Green Job Training Center on Plymouth Avenue that Renewable Energy Partners has spearheaded. So it's really breaking down that system that has kept all the benefits in a very small number of hands and bringing the solutions to climate change to everyone, and bringing that liberation to every level of society and beyond humans. We can't live without this biodiversity that we are connected to inextricably. So, I mean, it's daunting and it's really exciting for this systems change that we're working on. And we can't do it without community.
There we go. Diana, D, any comments, feedback? I love the fact that this is at its core, neighborhood people, our friends and neighbors, people around the corner from us, stepping up and learning and doing. Diana, what do you think? Or D, what do you think?
I was wondering, if you have this solar array on North High, why can't we have a solar array on Nellie Stone Johnson and Lucy Craft Laney and more schools? Because there's more flat roofs all over the district.
We are diligently working on that. We need to get, Excel needs to get better at getting them connected. The panels have been on North High School for 2 years. They're just getting connected in November. But you do need a minimum size roof for a community solar garden. You don't for an array. So solar arrays on schools and community solar gardens really depends on size. But we are actively working with neighborhood associations that can benefit from community solar garden kind of operation or ownership. We're actively looking for other sites. And again, we need people to push on Excel to do better at their interconnection process. But yeah, please reach out to, info@mplsclimate.org if anyone has a site in mind. Great question.
We're out of time. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Kyle. Kyle Samejima of Minneapolis Climate Action. Thank you so much. Thanks, Diana and Dee, for being here, for partnering with us, and for your questions. Brenda, thank you, as always. And we'll see you all tomorrow. It's going to be a nail biter, I think, but I think everybody should try to remind everybody they can to get out and vote early today. And if they can't vote today, make sure they show up tomorrow, Make your voice heard. Your vote is your voice. I'm Al McFarlane. This is The Conversation. We'll see you tomorrow.